What's up, NBT Nation? Good morning. It's a Sunday morning pop up live here at NBT. Great to see everybody out in NBT Nation and be interested to see who pops in here on a holiday weekend, at least in the US. Wanted to really talk about what do you do as a corporate trainer when you feel the grind, you feel worn down, you feel sort of attacked from all sides? How do you get your groove back? How do you get fresh again? How do you keep that energy level high? That's what we're going to talk about today in this pop-up NBT Live. If you find this interesting, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and as always, you can visit noboringtraining.com for more tips. So we are going to dive in. How do you stay fresh? How do you stay creative as a corporate trainer when you start to feel run down? All right, NBT Nation, great to be with y'all on a Sunday morning. It is a tough job for sure, and depending on the situation you're in, you could feel sort of worn down from all sorts of sides. It's chasing down subject matter experts to get them on the schedule, dealing with senior leadership who's maybe not so interested in training. It's the good idea fairies that always have some great new idea that disrupts your training plans. It's the normal operations of your business which disrupts your training plan. Participants don't want to participate, the projector blows up, the laptop quits working, whatever. It's a grind. So how do you stay fresh? How do you keep in the fight? How do you keep your energy levels high so you can be creative? You can continue to do the work needed to support your organization. How do you keep it going? That's what we're going to dive into, and we're going to dive into it right now. All right, number one. And by the way, these tips are pulled from my personal experience. I like to say I'm Adam Spack, certified no boring trainer. And I say that because I've spent 10,000 hours plus designing, developing, delivering corporate training. I'm in the fight every day as a learning and development manager in the real world. And so these are just not cool ideas I read in a book. These are pulled from my personal experience. So, number one, build your networks. Build your networks, NBT Nation, internally and externally as well. You got to build your network of people that can keep you refreshed and energized. And you want to look internally. Who are the champions inside your organization that can give you a pep talk, who can help you see things in a new perspective, who can open your eyes to new needs, who can help pull you in different directions, or just give you that little pat on the back of reassurance that you need. You also want to be looking at your external network. Who are those people in your external networks that can do those same things? Keep you refreshed, keep you energized, give you new perspective, let you vent, challenge you, hold you accountable, et cetera, et cetera. So build your networks. You'll never know what sort of interaction you can have with somebody when you're kind of feeling it as a trainer. You never know who is going to help you um, feel a little bit more energized, a little bit more on track, a little bit more back in the fight. So, can adjust the lighting here a little bit on the fly. Getting distracted by that. So, want to make sure I'm looking camera ready here. So, number one, build your networks. Again, you'll never know who's going to give you that word of reassurance, or that new idea, or that new spark, or that new energy, or you have a random conversation that takes you in a whole new direction that gets you going again. So be sure you're building your networks. Number two, always be learning as trainers. I think we are naturally curious, naturally creative, naturally wanting to expand our understanding, naturally want to build things. So the more you can stay learning, the more fresh you'll be, the more new ideas you'll have. When you get run down, when you get tired, where the challenges of the daily grind of trainer life can wear you down, learning that new skill, that new way of thinking, that new framework that you can then use in your daily work keeps you fresh. Because I think you would agree, when you figure that new thing out, when you take on that new challenge, when you learn that new piece of information, it gets the blood pumping again. And all of a sudden, whatever wore you down yesterday isn't quite so frustrating. It isn't quite holding you back quite as much. And we're going to switch scenes here a little bit. I'm going to give you a practical example. So, was listening to a podcast with Rich Deviney, was on the Cleared Hot podcast with Andy Stumpf. Great podcast, by the way. Free shout out for Andy there. Not that he needs my help at all. But anyway, Rich is the author of a book called The Attributes. Great book, by the way. Lots of great practical knowledge in there. And he's written other books as well. Why do I share this? So, was driving to the office, was listening to Rich talk about the attributes. Part of many of the projects I'm working on is uh, is training related to interviewing for leadership group. Keep it kind of broad brush. So how can leaders interview better? How can they source and select candidates better to help out the organization? So Rich's work is really geared into how do you select the right attributes for the character of the individual so that you can build a high performing team, regardless of what that team's at. Well, I'm eating this up. I'm driving in going, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. Within a day, I developed a brand new tool to help interviewing to be far more effective, far more powerful for the project that I was working on. All because I was learning. I was listening to a podcast that I found enriching. And I got to tell you, not only was that tool really useful for the populations that it serves, I walked into the office that day going, oh man, I got a new idea. And by the next day, I'd rolled out the new tool based on, I took Rich's work and then modified it for my specific organization. So credit to Rich for the foundation, but I was able to take that new idea and do something really cool with it specific to the project that I was working on and the organization I was serving. It's a quick, practical example of how always be learning can create a new spark, a new verve, a new energy. So if you're feeling worn down, you're feeling those warning signs, and you know you're getting tired of the daily grind, you go out and refresh yourself by learning something new. I guarantee you it'll pay dividends, even if what you're learning is utterly unrelated to the organization or the work you do. You learn something new, a new hobby, a new whatever. Who cares? You learn, you get refreshed, you get energized. And then if you learn something new that you can use in the workplace, so much the better. So there you go, NVT Nation. And by the way, shout out for Rich. Great book, by the way. Attributes. I've not read Masters of Uncertainty, but the Attributes, really great thought process, really great work that Rich is doing. So if you're building a high performance team, and again, Rich doesn't need my shout out, but if you're building a high performance team, check out his work. So if you're feeling run down, you're feeling the grind from training, you're feeling stressed, demotivated, your energy levels are waning, you're getting bogged down in the daily grind of being a corporate trainer, build your networks internally and externally, and always be learning. The next tip, always focus on facts and data. Facts and data. And I just pulled this up for a graphic. I'm not familiar with this organization. It's myfuturehr.com. And they brought on Ian Cook, VP of People Analytics. I've not listened to this. The point of this graphic, though, is what I'm talking about. How people shapes data and how data shapes people. If you're feeling bogged down in your corporate trainer life, lean more heavily into facts and data. And this is going to sound a little weird, but in my experience, one of the most one of the biggest sources of frustrations, one of the biggest sources for corporate friction is when people lean into emotions, they lean into their cognitive biases, they lean into their skewed, flawed thinking, their logical flaws, their there's a breakdown and people aren't looking at the facts and data. And I like this graphic, and shout out and credit to Ian's work. Um, but even just this graphic alone reinforces the point that I'm trying to make here is that people in your organization shape the data. People will come to a discussion about training and they'll have one little fact that they misuse, or they'll have a preconceived notion and they'll go find one little detail or data point to support their preconceived notion. Or they will look at a data set and misconstrue it, or they won't have any data at all. They'll just have the emotion that I talked about a second ago. And that can be wildly frustrating. I'll give you another practical example. So this is from datacamp.com. Again, just pulling this up to make the example. But if we look here, the customers acquired, what they're talking about is that the low performers in the organization only acquired 3 new customers. The high performers acquired 69. So quite a bit of delta there. But the point I'm making here is that it's very common in a corporate environment where all of a sudden a senior leader comes in and says, we need a training. Nobody's acquiring new customers. Nobody's, we're not adding enough new customers to the pipeline, and nobody knows how to do it. And we got to put together this comprehensive training. You as a trainer then drop everything you're doing, which creates a ton of frustration. You put together a training focused specifically on how to acquire new customers. You roll that out universally. The high performers don't care because they're already adding 69 new people to the organization, to the pipeline. Your low performers aren't adding new customers because they're low performers, not because they don't necessarily know how to do it. It's probably more of a management issue. Are they being is there oversight? Are those people wasting time? Do they understand the goals of adding new or new customers? Have they been given the tools to go out and prospect and find new customers? But the data there is telling us that this might not be a training issue. So you put this big elaborate training together, roll it out across the board. Your high performers aren't bored. They aren't there. Now they're irritated that you just wasted their time. And your low performers, the training really isn't helping them. It's not that they don't know how to go find new customers. It's that they're lazy, or they're wasting their time, or there isn't a priority, or there's some other bottleneck. It's a management type problem, a leadership type problem. But you don't know any of that because you don't have data in front of you. So when that senior leader comes and says, we need a training, nobody's acquiring new customers. Unless you can get under the hood and break, number one, have that stat that you see on the screen there. Start with that and then break those data down into more pieces. Unless you do that, you're going to get all spun up. You're going to spin up the training machine and then get wildly frustrated, demotivated, demoralized, delight. All the bad things are going to start happening. So I like to share this as a practical example. Again, I'm not familiar with DataCamp's work. You might want to check out their websites. But again, I'm using it to the point that Ian has here in his talk that he gave on My Future HR or myhrfuture.com. People shape the data shapes the people. And if you're getting frustrated and run down as a corporate trainer, lean more heavily into data as opposed to emotion. Emotion and preconceived notion and ego and misconception and rumors and knee-jerk responses and reactionary responses. Those drive a lot of the frustration we have as trainers. And you can start to mute that. You can start to kind of tamp that down by just looking at facts and data. And then when you get into the facts and data, you can start to parse that down even more so that when it is an actual training situation, when it's the reason why low performers aren't finding new customers is they don't know how. They're trying. then you can really tailor the right training response into the right people so that you can really attack the right problem. So there you go, NBT Nation. How do you stay fresh when you're a corporate trainer and you're feeling bogged down? Let's change gears a little bit more. Let's go back to Stephen Covey's classic Circle of Control, Circle of Influence. You know, and this is from learningloop.io. Again, I'm just using the graphic to make the point, but check out their website. They've got some cool stuff. Um, as trainers, what can we control? A leader comes in, we need a training, drop everything. We can't control that leader that's got her hair on fire. What we can control is the questions we ask that leader to understand the problem. What we can control is going out on our own and being a detective to get the right data and facts that I just talked about. What we can control is going out and leveraging our network internally to really get more understanding of what that leader's hair is on fire about. What we can control is going back to that leader with a design that addresses the real problem, not whatever that leader's hair was on fire about. What we can control is going back to that leader and giving them alternatives, or maybe even pushing back a little bit to say, hey, I dug into the problem that you're talking about. Here's what I think the real problem is, and give them facts and figures. That's what we can control. We can't control. We can maybe influence that leader in some way, but we can't change that. We can control the preparation of a training session. Do we have all the attendees invited? Do they know what room to go into? Have we set up the room ahead of time? Have we set up the electronics? Do we know how the electronics work? Is the sound system functioning? All that kind of stuff that we can control. We can't control that the power goes out in the city while we're doing our session. It is what it is. We can control our contingency plan when the power goes out in the city. We can have a series of contingencies that we go through when that power goes out so that we're not stressed. We can plan all those contingencies out on the front end so we're not stressed. So again, just going back to Stephen Covey's fantastic work about circle of control, circle of influence, circle of concern, really understanding. And at the end of the day, we can only control us, our actions, our behaviors, our choices. And the more you lean into that as a trainer, it helps to tamp down those frustrations. It helps to tamp down that grind. It helps to tamp down. I'll give you another practical example. Working on a project, planning out some training for an organization, large group of people, a lot of travel. Everybody's come to a hotel conference room, that kind of big get together, right? Lots of details and lots of stakeholders involved in that project. What can Adam control in that situation? I can control supporting the primary person that's organizing everything. I can control helping that individual to figure out what it is they're trying to accomplish. I can control the advisory services I give to the other key stakeholders. I can control facilitating the planning meetings at a high level so that we have a really dialed in framework, a really dialed in objective, really dialed in direction that meeting is going in. I can control how I support the individual presenters there so that their sessions are actual training, not presentations. I can control the content that me or my team provides those presenters to use, either to standardize the content or at least build out content that is effective. That's what I can control. I can't control all the good idea fairies. You're going to always have good idea fairies that come along at the last minute and go, oh, I think we ought to do blah, blah, blah. And yeah. That is what it is. But if you do more of the stuff that I talked about on the front end, there's not much room for the good idea fairies. I can't control the person who skips all the planning meetings and then shows up at the last minute and craps all over everything. I can't control that. But if I control all the stuff that I talked about on the front end, when that person shows up after skipping a bunch of meetings and craps all over everything, you know what? That's a them problem. And it highlights that they skipped all the planning meetings. And you know what? You missed your opportunity to influence the meeting. Sorry, be at the planning meetings. You know what I'm saying? You getting where I'm going at? I can't control that there's a last minute change to the agenda because a very senior leader wants to add something in. That's as long as it's legal, ethical, and moral, that's their purview as a senior leader. But what I can control is how calm I am as I support the people planning the meeting and the people presenting and training at the trainers at the meeting. I can control my level of calm to that last minute schedule change. I can control providing them some options of how to shoehorn that in. So circle of control, circle of influence, really important concept as a trainer. If you're feeling run down, you're feeling that grind from corporate training, the way to deal with that is focusing in on the circle of control. Lean into next, who can you influence? And stuff outside of that, you know what? You're going to waste your energy worrying about stuff outside of that. So, all right. A lot of good stuff here. What's next? Start with the why. Start with the why. What on earth am I talking about? Obviously, this is Simon Sinek's work. Start with the why. This is actually Simon Sinek's actual website. Definitely check it out. And by the way, I've taken the Start with the Why online class. Really helpful. Really helped dial in my personal why of what motivates me, what influences me, what gets me charged up. And I still go back and refer to my notes from that session. So again, Simon doesn't need my shout out to keep the lights on over at his company, but I will give a free plug that Start with the Why online class, or course rather. Really good stuff there. Really top-notch organization, good stuff there. Why do I bring it up? When you as a trainer are getting worn out, you're getting tired, you're getting run down, you're getting pulled in 1,000 different directions, when you're feeling the stress, when you're feeling run down in the day-to-day mechanics of being a corporate trainer, revisit your why. If you want to stay fresh and re-energized and creative and get motivated again, reconnect with your why. It sounds a little woo, a little mystical, but the more you reconnect with what motivates you as a corporate trainer, the more you will get that passion back. You will get that energy level back. You will get that spark, that pep in your step. You can reconnect with your why. I love to help build things. I love to come up with solutions. I love to shape things at an organizational level, at a strategic level, at a leadership level. If you're thinking about a corporation or a business, I love to shape things and the processes, practices, and procedures at a high level. And then that trickles down to tools, frameworks, and tips and best practices at the next tier level so that it shakes out and impacts the organizational goal. That's the kind of stuff that gets me motivated. I love pouring myself out to help others be successful. And when they get that light bulb moment and they go out and they use some cool little thing that you developed and they become successful, buddy, that floats my boat. That puts the pep in my step. So when I'm facing the daily grind, when I'm facing the challenge, when I'm facing, and I'm feeling run down, going back and referring to my personal why. Maybe it's the why of the project. So you might be working on something and you've gone off course. You got, 13 different people saying you should be doing 13 different things, and people, the scope creep has crept in, and people are getting off track and people are getting, going off in a million different directions. And you, as the training element of that project, are getting worn down and tired and frustrated. Man, that can be tough. Maybe go back to the project why. Why are you doing that project in the first place? But either way, if you want to get re-energized and refreshed as a corporate trainer, reconnect with your why. Oftentimes it's your personal why. The more you can have that clearly defined, clearly dialed in, and you stay connected to it, the better. And again, shout out for Simon Sinek's work. Check out their online classes. I found them super helpful. At bare minimum, read the book, and you can go from there. So there you go. One last tip. I want to change things up a little bit. Give me a second here. Click some buttons. Get everything situated here. Bear with me here, NBT Nation. Oh, I changed my screens. It's all falling apart. Scratch that itch. Scratch that itch. You say, Adam, what on earth are you talking about? I think as a corporate trainer, you go to work, you've got a mandate at work. Maybe you're just a frontline facilitator of meetings. Maybe you're an instructional designer. Maybe you're the leader who's putting all the programs together. Maybe you do just virtual instruction. Maybe, whatever. You're the LMS administrator. Doesn't matter. Corporate trainers, really good ones, I think, are usually pretty creative, pretty, lot of ideas, a lot of left brainy type stuff, right? And if you're feeling run down, if you're feeling demotivated, if you're feeling the grind from the daily work, there's a technique I call scratch that itch. And it sort of ties back into the point I made earlier about always be learning. You should always be onboarding new information, new tools, new ideas, and then incorporate that into whatever you're working on. And that can be a great way to get remotivated, get your spark back, get your groove back. But you can take that concept at a bigger picture level. And I call that scratch that itch. And here's what I mean. In my daily work as a learning and development manager, I go to work, I'm working on projects, whatever. And there's a task list. You got to do all this stuff. And you got to stay focused on that. Every once in a while, if I'm feeling the burn, I will carve out a very small period of time. You got to be very careful with this. I'm not suggesting you suddenly dedicate 12 straight days to this, but carve out 15 minutes in your calendar to scratch your creative itch. Maybe it's record and explainer video that's about something that is important to the organization, but is utterly unrelated to your task list that day. Maybe it's create that video and try a new transition or a new camera angle, or do a walk and talk explainer video walking outside when normally you do stuff in a studio. If you're an instructional designer, maybe try some new, and you're an instructional designer, and your LMS course framework is set, it's standardized, it's corporate branded, and all that stuff. Maybe try a totally different approach, just as a small experiment. Take 15 minutes and design one little learning module with one little trigger. It doesn't look like anything else in your corporately mandated branding scheme, but it floats your boat. And just spend 15 minutes on that. If it's an instructional design or a instructor-led session, and you kind of always do the same 5 instructor-led sessions from the course library, and that's your job. You just do those 5 programs. Maybe go back and revamp one of the modules in a way that you find fresh and refreshing, just because it scratches your itch of creativity. Maybe create a whole new infographic to support one of those modules. Maybe it's create a whole new infographic about a topic utterly unrelated to the 5 courses you normally teach, but serves the organization in some other way. That's a way to scratch that itch internally. Maybe you scratch that itch externally. So at work, you're a course, you deliver, you're an instructor, you deliver training. Need some more coffee here, NBT Nation. Your day job, you lead instructor-led sessions, you deliver a lot of training. But maybe externally, you scratch the itch by doing a side hustle. You're creating a podcast, creating a video channel, social media channel, create a training manual for some service organization you volunteer with. Maybe you volunteer for your kids' sports team and you create some training sessions for them. Whatever. Scratch the itch externally. I'm going to show you a video right now that demonstrates scratching that itch for me, and then I'll explain what it means.
Do you remember the first time you saw an aircraft and instantly fell in love with the sights, sounds, and smells of flight? For me, it's when my father took me down to the Cincinnati International Airport. We went out to the outdoor observation area and began watching aircraft way back in the 1980s. And like a lot of young kids, I was fascinated by seeing all the big aircraft moving around. Before long, we were headed down to the airport with cameras, scanners, binoculars, printed timetables, and the occasional stepladder so that we could get great pictures of airplanes coming into land and take off. Short Finals is a channel dedicated to my love of commercial aviation. It's going to be a mixture of pictures we took in our original plane spotting days, videos for my current day air travel, memorabilia, stories, and so much more. And I hope you come along on the adventure as we celebrate all things commercial aviation.
So you say Short Finals. What on earth is that? Well, NBT Nation, I've shared a couple times. Maybe you've heard, maybe you haven't. I'm launching a new social media channel. Actually, it's already launched. It's over on a different platform that starts with a T, but it's a channel unrelated to NBT and corporate training and all of that stuff. It's a video channel about commercial aviation. Why? Because that scratches my creative itch. I love creating content. I love creating training frameworks. I love creating training sessions. I love building things like we talked about with Start with the Why, build something at a big holistic level, start up here at a high strategic level and then drill down to the tactical level. That's what floats my boat. So if you're a corporate trainer and you're getting bogged down at the day job, scratch the externally. And this is an example of doing that. This channel really is about my passion for commercial aviation. It's about my passion for airline travel. It's a way to connect with a lot of great memories, but it's a way to scratch that itch to stay fresh. And guess what? That's reigniting and refueling my love of NBT, No Boring Training, and NBT Nation, and all the social media channels that NBT is already present on, and all the great work NBT does with leaders who want to align their learning strategies to drive real business outcomes. It's helping me reinvigorate how NBT helps the trainers themselves to design, develop, deliver effective corporate training. And it's all because I'm working on this totally unrelated thing over here that really scratches my itch. So there you have it, NBT Nation. There is a way to keep yourself fresh as a corporate trainer. Scratch that itch internally as it pertains to the business that you're already involved with, or even externally, whether it's volunteering for your kids' sporting organization, the local town, FFA group, or town government, something like that, or just some totally off the cuff, totally unrelated way to scratch your itch and keep yourself fresh. There are lots of ways as a corporate trainer to keep those energy level high. And, just to kind of revisit, you got to build your networks, both internal to the company you serve and externally to help keep yourself fresh, keep yourself motivated, get new ideas, keep your energy level high, sort through challenging situations, etc. Always be learning, always go out and look for those new ways, new approaches, new ideas of how to keep things going. Facts and data. Really lean into facts and data, because if you don't and you just go with the emotional roller coaster of the organization or the people in that organization, it's going to only wear you down. Circle of control versus circle of influence. We talked about control what you can control, influence who you can influence. Anything outside of that, you know what? You're wasting your time getting all bogged down in that. Start with the why. Really investigate your personal why, or maybe the why of the project you're working on, but use that as a way to stay energetic, fresh, and motivated. And then lastly, the concept of scratch that itch. Find a way to get a little creativity into your daily grind. And I'm willing to bet for most trainers, that will be enough, whether you train full-time or not. That little spark of creative energy will be enough to kind of get you motivated, getting you refreshed. And you could do that scratching of the itch internal to the organization or external. Totally unrelated things. So there you have it, MBT Nation. No boring training. We serve the leaders who want to align their learning strategies to achieve real business outcomes. And we help trainers to design, develop, deliver training sessions that actually help people actually produce results, not yawns. There you have it, MBT Nation. Another Sunday morning pop-up live. Thanks for joining us. If you like this content, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel so we can keep making content like this. Tag people in if you find it relevant for them. But at the end of the day, if you're a corporate trainer, you're going to get tired, worn down, and feel the grind. Here's some practical things you can do to fight against it. Thanks, everyone. We'll be popping back in here real soon. Let me know what has been your favorite live so far.